Hello, New Jersey. I always wanted to say that. I'm from New Jersey, so this is nice. Yeah. My name is Perri, and I want to talk to you today about integrating Lean Startup. So at this point, you've heard some awesome talks about how Lean Startup and how different techniques have worked really well for some people in their companies. But you might be wondering, okay, what do I do first? How can I go back on Monday and say, you know what, I really want to try these things to my company? And that's the goal of this talk for us today. So I have integrated Lean Startup into my role as a product manager and a UX designer over the years, and I've seen fantastic success. So every company that I go to, I want to bring these techniques with me to my development team there. So the first company that I integrated it into was OpenSky. OpenSky was an e-commerce company, and I had great success with our team. We were using Lean Startup for all of our experiments. It really changed the way that we worked for the better. I wanted to bring all those techniques with me and implement them into my team there. Through my interviews, they knew that I practiced Lean Startup, I taught classes on this, and I really believed in it. So I thought they were on board. Well, first week, I go to a meeting with my developers and my manager, and I go, everything you're doing is wrong. You're not using Lean, you're not implementing MVPs, all you're doing is making a lot of crap. So how can we change this? And there was just silence. And my manager said to me, you know what, Melissa? It's really nice that you like Lean Startup and all, but that's just not going to work here. It's not the way we work, and it's not going to work for our company. And my first thought, I was absolutely flabbergasted. My first thought was, what the hell's wrong with these people? Why do they hate awesome? So I did the exact thing you're supposed to do in that scenario, and I pushed harder. Obviously, the reaction was still really negative. I started getting branded. I was the lean girl. It was like I had cooties. And the worst part about it was that nobody was listening to my ideas anymore. So I realized something had to change. And I took the right step, and I stepped back. I realized it wasn't eating my own dog food. I wasn't learning why they had such an adverse reaction to these terms, MVP and Lean. And I decided to figure out why. So I talked to a product manager who had been there since the beginning. He had been there for 5 years since they were born. And I said, you know, what's going on? Why do people hate these terms? And he told me a story. He said, you know, when the Lean Startup book came out, we had a developer read it. And he was really into doing MVPs. And he got buy-in for it, because it is a fantastic idea, right? Let's do MVPs, let's test things and put them out. But he didn't realize that MVPs were only a test, and that you had to go back and take them down and build a full product. So he was leaving broken code all over the site, and he was ruining the experience for the customers, and they were pissed. Aha, so I realized that my manager and my company were attributing this negative experience to Lean as a method, and not to one person's misunderstanding of what Lean is. And I realized then, Lean scares people. Lean scares people because they don't know what it is, or they misunderstand it. They associate Lean to half-assed broken shit that really ruins a product. This is what they think. So the way that you integrate it at one company might not be the same at another company. And it really all comes down to the different cultures that you work with. You have to adapt the processes for them. Now, I've integrated Lean Startup into companies of a lot of different cultures. OpenSky was a small e-commerce, and it was an accepting culture. Our motto was move fast and break things. We were all about trying new processes as long as it made us better. Company B was a complete 180. It was rejecting. They had been doing things a lot longer, and they had set processes. So they were less willing to take risks and try new things. Flowsby was a company I co-founded last year in Italy, and it was my first startup. So our culture was, what the hell are we doing? And if you've ever started a company, you'll know that's the culture, because you're just kind of figuring it out as you go along. So we were running with Lean Startup there in our own way, trying to make it work. But the one thing that I've realized across all these companies and these different cultures is that there is a system that you can use and tweak depending on your culture and your situation at the company to get integration of Lean Startup. And that's what I do now at ProdUX Labs. I help companies integrate Lean Startup and find a good method for them. And that's basically to demonstrate and educate. First, you need to demonstrate the value of what you want to add to the company. Then you have to educate them on the processes. And you keep following this loop, because every time you loop through it, you gain more and more trust from your team to actually integrate these processes and do bigger and better projects. So I want to share 2 situations where I used this at 2 different companies with you, and these are my stories. All right, first one, OpenSky. OpenSky is an e-commerce startup. We connected curators who were tastemakers and experts in food, healthy living, fashion, like Martha Stewart and Bobby Flay, with shoppers. So our tastemakers, our curators, would go out there and say, Bobby Flay would say, hey, I love this grill. This grill is fantastic. You guys should buy it. And our shoppers would go, oh, I love you, Bobby Flay. They're like, I'll buy your grill. And we had a whole e-commerce site set up for that. So as a product manager at OpenSky, I really wanted to demonstrate how Lean Startup worked to them. So I was figuring out, where is my opportunity to show this? And it came to me one day when our CEO approached me, and he said, Melissa, I want to put Twitter-like feeds up on our e-commerce site on the home page so our curators can write messages to our shoppers. And I said, all right, sounds reasonable, but why? Why do you want to do that? He said, well, I was at dinner the last week, and I was talking to a lot of our shoppers, and it turns out they don't believe our curators are real. They don't think that they're really, suggesting these products, and they really believe in them. But they think that they're real on Twitter. They think Martha is actually sitting there writing all her stuff on Twitter. So if we put Twitter-like messages in our home feed, they'll think our curators are real, because they'll just talk about their dogs and stuff. And I said, okay. This is my opportunity. This is where I get to test it. All right. Now, what goal are you looking for, Mr. CEO, to happen with this Twitter-like messages? And he said, I just want them to engage more. Great. Now I knew where he was coming from, and I had to get buy-in to do my experiment. First step to getting buy-in to do your first experiment is to make people an offer they can't refuse. Propose your experiment in a way that sounds like an awesome, awesome deal to your manager, and make it sound very de-risked. So now that I understood what John wanted, I could go back to him and I said, I talked to the developers. We can totally do these Twitter-like messages. But they say it's going to take 8 weeks, 5 people to actually build them. But if I can prove that this works with 10% of the time and 10% of the money without sacrificing brand, sales, or data, can I actually prove this will work before we go and build it? And he said, yes. I can't turn that down. Sure, go do it. So now I had to create an experiment to see if the boss was right. So I worked with one developer, and in 2 days we built an MVP. We linked it to a product, and I just pretended to be Shopaholic, one of our curators, and write an awesome little message to them in their voice. It was the only message in the feed from a curator. And we measured it over a couple days to see what the change was between this and the other products. Well, 2 days later, we go and pull the data, and we look at it, and nothing changed. So I get to go back and say, I invalidated your assumptions. Sweet. So I had to go and present my findings to the CEO. And when you present findings to somebody, there's 2 key things to hit on: money saved and opportunity cost. Now, everybody wants to know about money saved, how much money you're going to save me. But the point of Lean is the opportunity cost. While we were spending 8 weeks building crap nobody wanted to use, we could have been building something that had value to our company. And that's the thing that you really need to drive home when integrating Lean. So I went back and I told him, guess what? Didn't work, but we saved you $77,000 that we would have spent there over 8 weeks building this thing. But the real thing is that we saved you 1,600 hours of development time over all of our best developers. And that's when I knew I had him hooked. He said, how did you do this magic? Please tell me. Great. I'll tell you. I'll educate you about Lean. So now you go into the education process. Once you got them in, once they want to learn more, and you tell them about Lean and the processes that you use. But you don't want to rush into it and scare them. You got to start small. So first and foremost, drop the buzzwords. Lean has become such a crazy buzzword, and people are using it in the wrong ways. They're saying, I am lean because I made a landing page. That's not lean. I'm sorry. It's just a buzzword that you're using thinking that you're lean. So first and foremost, drop the jargon and speak in a language that everybody can understand. So our assumptions become, what do we think? Our MVPs are, how do we test that? And when we pivot, we say, what do we do now? This way, you have everybody speaking in the same language, and you wipe out those old misunderstandings of what those terms mean. Next, after you get the language down, you teach them that Lean is all about learning. So when we fail, we don't just fail and say, okay, that didn't work, whatever. We learn about what our customers actually want. So when I was telling my CEO about this, I said, you know what? Our Twitter-like messages did not work, but we talked to our customers and we found out that they're not coming to our site like we thought they were. They're not going to opensky.com and seeing our homepage with all those messages about the curators. No, they're coming through emails. Every time we send them an email, they click on a product and bypass the homepage and go to the product page. Oh, we didn't know that. Okay. So I said, you know, we can run another experiment in a few days and see if we can tackle that same problem with this new medium. And he said, all right, do it again. Work your magic, do your lean, get me something good. So that's what we did. We made another experiment. We used email as a medium to show curator messages, and we launched this email. This email became the most successful email we ever sent out at OpenSky. And if you've ever gotten OpenSky emails, you know we send a lot of emails. So we put this out, we tripled revenue, we doubled open rates with this, and we had success. Great. I had buy-in. I had a lot of buy-in. I demonstrated and educated, and we kept doing that until we gained more and more trust from our management team. And that came quickly at OpenSky, since we were able to take big risks and we showed big rewards like this. But it's not always that easy. It's not always, you don't always get that kind of freedom to do these big projects and show that this will work like this.
So company B is a B2B company.
And it's a little bit more corporate. It's been around longer, it has a lot of employees, and they have a lot of money riding on each individual company that they sign a deal with, like most B2B companies. So we weren't as adept to change. I had to figure out how I was going to demonstrate this to them. How was I going to show them the value of Lean and all these products without scaring them off? So I had to start small. What is one little thing that I can take and demonstrate the great value of Lean, but it's not so scary that I'll turn them off and I'll get buy-in for it? I also had to start comfortable. I had to make sure that whatever I was proposing didn't sound so out of left field, didn't sound so crazy that they were going to turn it down. So I thought about what was core to Lean and what little measures I could take to get these processes integrated. And I realized what's core to Lean is really assumption testing, seeing if we're right about our assumptions about our users and our problems. So I said, what if I take one assumption, just one assumption we have as a team that we've been talking about a lot lately that is really core to our products, and see if that's right or not. And I figured I could test that through user research. Now, user research is something that everybody should be doing. And I think companies know that they should be doing user research, even if they're not. But it sounds like a good thing to do. Go talk to your users and learn about them. I proposed, can I go talk to our users and learn about their problems? And my boss said yes. So I used those interviews to test one assumption. Our assumption was that we were getting a lot of statistics saying that users were logging into our site every day and spending tons of hours on our site. So we were planning products for that. Well, I talked to the users in person and watched what they were doing.
Turns out they kept the analytics, which is company B's product,
open in the back of their computer all week, but only checked it on Mondays when we refreshed data. Oh, okay. So our users aren't coming to our site as much as we think. So how does that affect us? I went back and I told them about our assumption and how I disproved it. And we said, okay, what kind of action can we take to change this? But I also started the discussion of, all right, if that assumption was wrong, what else are we assuming about our users is wrong? And that opened up the how. How did you do this? Tell me how to go figure out if more assumptions about our users are wrong. So I had to educate them. I had to wipe out those old misunderstandings that they had about Lean. So the first step was me to knock out my buzzwords again. I got rid of Lean, I got rid of MVP, and I got rid of Pivot because I didn't want to scare them off again. But as I kept iterating, I educated them and started putting in the language piece by piece until we were talking about the terms in the right context. And then we were talking about Lean as a method in a way that they understood and was correct by the end of it. And every time that we educated, we also had to demonstrate. So we started taking on bigger projects and adding in more practices of Lean. We would educate and then demonstrate. We went from one assumption to problem exploration to integrating design studios until we were on full Lean experiment cycles. And at each one of these loops, we added more and more trust. And that gave me the liberty to do more rigorous assumption testing and keep taking on larger and larger products. So more risk and more reward. So when the team is educated, has demonstrated value, and you have that trust, you know you've integrated Lean because it's the obvious and only choice. Instead of starting a project and saying, what features are we going to build, people start saying, OK, what are we going to test? What kind of experiments are we going to run? Then you know you've had them. Now we've got our team Lean. But reality check. Monday, you're going to go back to work. And your boss will probably say no at first. They're going to shoot you down. But you just have to keep trying. And you have to learn from what they're saying. Treat integrating Lean Startup into your company as an experiment. The lessons that you learn from getting your first no are just as valuable as customer feedback in an experiment. And remember that, because getting Lean is hard. Just remember that you can start small, and you need to demonstrate the value, then educate people on the processes, and keep gaining trust so you can run experiments freely. And sometimes it's going to be a fight, but it's worth it at the end because you'll have the freedom to make better products. Thanks. I'm Melissa Perri.